Hey folks, and welcome back to the channel. Now in this video we're going to be taking a sneak peek at all of the new stuff coming to vrising in the new update, Secrets of Gloomrot. If you're not familiar already, this update is dropping on the 17th of May and is set to contain a whole bunch of new content, including new bosses, new map areas, and reimagined existing map areas, new weapons, enemies, and much more. Now I was fortunate enough to get involved in an early test for the update and was able to collect a bunch of footage for you guys at home. Now, forewarning, this video will contain some footage of the new stuff coming to vrising, including one of the new bosses and new areas, so some spoilers ahead. If you find the video useful or entertaining, drop it a like and subscribe to the channel for more stuff just like this. So, let's get right into the good stuff. vrising's new update is touted by the developers to be an expansion level content drop, starting with two new map areas, Gloomrot North and Gloomrot South. Having spent some time running around this area in the early access preview, it's got a very different feel to anything we've seen in vrising thus far. It's still got that dark and dingy vibe of locations like the Cursed Forest or Farbane Woods, but there's plenty of these mutant horrors running around, spawning from waste sludge pools of the human settlements in the region. Said humans are pretty unique too, adopting a steampunk style of life, sinking into industrial technology, and they will use it against you as well. We're talking walking turrets, flamethrowers, rail guns, and even spider walkers. It's definitely a lot more varied than what we've seen so far, and from what I've seen so far in the update, the developers have nailed Gloomrot. It's new, it's fresh, and it has its own unique style with plenty to explore, fight, and conquer. Outside of Gloomrot, we've seen some expansions and reworks to existing map areas too, with new points of interest and bosses in areas like Dunley Farms and the Cursed Forest. In total, there's 13 new bosses in this update. We tracked down Maya, the Dark Savant, in the early preview, based in a tower on top of some high ground, surrounded by books in her library. Really cool area for the boss fight to be in. There was lots of little bits of destructible cover, and as always, the mechanics of the fight were pretty interesting too. This is obviously just one example. Another is the rework of the Cursed Forest. Some areas within the region have been redesigned, and there's now a dangerous mist that lurks in the biome that stacks up the longer you're in there, shrouding your map until eventually you're completely lost within the mist. Gloomrot has its own harsh weather in the form of lightning strikes as well. It's not just new bosses and new areas we've got to fight though. There's been some regular enemies that have been added to the existing map areas as well for us to discover, and according to the devs, over 30 new enemy types are available for us to check out across this new update. Now, I'm sure some of you have seen some of the teasers in the past for the new weapons to expect in vrising, including a pair of black powder pistols and the greatsword. Now, I was able to give the greatsword a try, and yeah, I think it's going to be one that I use quite often for sure. Not only that though, we're seeing the implementation of legendary weapons in this update. These weapons are found in the highest level areas and come in fragments that we'll need to put together at the legendary forge, which is one of the 4 new crafting benches alongside the jewel crafter's station, the fabricator, and the leatherworking station. Once we put together one of these legendary weapons, they'll have some randomized properties, as we can see in this example on screen for you folks now. I wasn't able to find one of these during the time I spent in the test build, but I'm looking forward to getting my hands on them when the update actually releases. With the leatherworking station, I noticed that there's been some improvements offered to the inventory system, where we can now craft some small 3-slot bags for certain items that give additional inventory spots for things like paper, scrolls, coins, or herbs. The UI for this I felt was maybe a little bit clunky. It wasn't particularly visually pleasing or accessible, but it was functional and it allowed me to carry some extra stuff, which is always nice. Having that extra carrying spaces for coins especially is going to be incredibly useful from this point on, as there are now some trading posts located around the map that will allow players to use copper and silver coins to purchase items, recipes, unique cosmetics, just to name a couple of examples there. Keep in mind that if you go ahead and try to use these trading posts, some of them won't take kindly to vampires and you might need to disguise yourself first. Next on the list of major changes coming to vrising in this update, we've seen an overhaul to the way that spells work. I actually really liked this part of the update when we were giving it a go in practice, because whilst the spells essentially remain the same at their core, there are multiple multiple tiers of jewels that can now be slotted into a spell to add extra effects or change existing effects in some way. Each jewel is different, so you end up with a few different ways to tailor spells to your specific playstyles, which is really pleasant. I can imagine this adding quite a bit of variety to PvP as well, providing more than just one meta build. Some of the existing spells in the game have seen some reworks or changes, the spellbook itself has been given a fresh UI, and on top of that, with Gloomrot, there's a new storm magic tree being added with a host of new abilities to try out. Alright, so that brings me to the last major change of this update, and that's to do with building and territories. Firstly, we can finally build a castle across multiple levels, allowing us to expand upwards as well as outwards. That's going to be necessary too, with all the new crafting benches coming in. Even with the existing stuff, it felt like a bit of a task trying to fit everything inside one castle, so being able to expand upwards a couple of levels will definitely help with this. There's been some new colored lighting options added, some new decorative placements, and perhaps the biggest change when it comes to castles, the territory system has been completely reworked. For those that have played vrising before, you might have encountered some issues when expanding your base area, specifically bumping into other players' claimed areas or being locked in by another base expanding. In the new system, rather than gradually expanding, plots of land are pre-allocated, and building a castle heart will essentially claim that pre-allocated area as your own. Now, this sounds like a great idea in theory, and I was totally on board with it initially, but even in the early access test with a limited number of players, we found that the new system resulted in a whole bunch of land already being claimed, and we genuinely struggled to find somewhere to make a base. This issue is going to be compounded by the fact that existing playthroughs are being reset with this update, so everyone will be trying to claim bases in the same map areas. Now, this is personal opinion, of course, and I can see that this was done with the best of intentions, but I do think that we're essentially just replacing one problem with another, unless something else changes along the way. So that's just about it for the major changes and new additions coming to vrising in the new update, the Secrets of Gloomrot. But is it worth coming back for? I'm going on about 8 hours or so spent on the early access test, but yeah, I genuinely enjoyed it, and experiencing the new fights, the new map areas, and new weapons was a blast. If you own the game already, or if you're looking at picking it up, now is definitely a good time to jump back in with this update. We're likely to see more players around all of a sudden too, which is going to make for more interactions with players, and the new content is definitely worth experiencing for yourself, in my opinion. Just be aware that a lot of that new content is at the top end of the game, so you'll need to start from ground zero and work through a large chunk of the existing content before you get to experience a lot of the new stuff. Still, it's a great update, and I'm looking forward to seeing more players' opinions. If you're watching this after the update has dropped, let me know what you think of the new content so far. And if you're watching this before the update has come around, what are you excited for most? What would you like to see changed or adapted? Either way, let me know in the comments. I'd be really interested to know what you guys think about the new update. Lastly, if you're looking for a place to play the new update for vrising, we're going to have a PvE server up for my community, which you can find on my Discord, linked in the description. Special thank you to all of my Patreon subscribers for their support for the channel. Seriously, couldn't do without all of you folks, and if you're interested in joining them and having your name in the credits of my videos, there's a link in the description for that too. Thanks everyone, and I'll see you all in the next one.